do have a question for the group, if you don't mind. And I'm very curious to hear everyone's answers here, because this is something that was asked of Trump during his interview with the Black Journalists of America. I believe that was the organization. He was asked if J.D. Vance was going to be ready to be president, right? If he was qualified to be president. And he gave a very interesting answer that I think bears discussing. He said, well, traditionally, vice presidential choices don't matter to the election. Two questions for you. Do we think that's actually true? And how important and impactful do we think that the Walz pick will be on the election in November? Regardless of whether you think he was a good pick or a bad pick, do we think that this is going to influence the election? Why or why not? Go ahead.
Sure, I'll go first. I actually generally agree with the statement that vice presidential picks don't matter. I think with the case of J.D. Vance, I don't think it's going to matter because we all know it's going to be Trump policy, right? With Kamala's pick, we don't really know what Kamala policy looks like, right? If she's never been on her own, except separate of Biden, her like in Congress record is kind of hazy. You know, it looks like she's super liberal, but then she's got a ton of no show votes. You know, so she's kind of got this ambiguous. So the only policy that we have to even look at the ticket is Walz policy. So you're going to have to combine these things. And whenever you have things that are just totally insane, like free healthcare and free and driver's licenses for illegal aliens, that shit is going to play really, really bad. And it's going to look across like, oh, well, this is what the borders are who failed at the border is basically advocating for. And I think Tim Walz's policy are basically going to just become the Kamala Harris campaign policy, like snafu, as opposed to like with Vance and Trump. It's all Trump policy. There's only Trump policy. There's no Vance policy.
I want to hear what everyone else thinks, but just to that real quick, and $5 from Artemis Fowl, but we'll get to that in a second. I don't think that's true on both counts. I think that what Walz does is he does appeal to a certain demographic base that feels unheard, unseen by the Biden administration, right? I think he represents a different tack than again, whether it's true or not, these are the vibes, these are the feels, these are what people are going to be voting on. And I think that he does signal that Harris is willing to listen. And I do think that Buttigieg had a very good reply when it came to Trump's answer to his question. The vice presidential pick is one of the first choices with actual teeth to it as a presidential candidate, because there are constitutional instructions on how that works, on what situations where it comes into play, what responsibilities that they have, and your pick for that does signal how you're going to govern, and it does have a potential impact on America. And I think that in this race specifically, with all the craziness that's happened, right? We've had Biden drop out. We had Trump almost get assassinated. All this crazy shit's happening. I think that now more than ever, these choices absolutely matter. And again, I want to contrast this with J.D. Vance and how bad and poor of a choice J.D. Vance was. Look, if we win this election, if the Democrats, I should say, win this election in November, I'm going to point to J.D. Vance as the reason Trump lost. That is going to be the reason Trump lost. It's his VP pick. That more than anything. But I want to hear everyone else's thoughts on this. So Lactoid, go ahead.
I mean, Wick, we can criticize J.D. Vance, but at least he took his deployment to Iraq, unlike Tim. So I don't know. I understand that like J.D. Vance is like odd. And like the weird kind of like allegations, I don't take those to heart. I don't understand.
Well, they already lost the weird advantage with Tim.
I mean, look, I don't understand like so wasn't their entire like Portland campaigns like keep Portland weird? Like, I don't know if weird is really like this critical insult. For some reason, it's getting under some people's skins, like conservatives. I don't really know why. I think it'd be better just to ignore it. It seems pretty ridiculous. But in terms of like is picking JD or is picking Tim here, is this stuff like really relevant in this election? I think it can be. I think probably in this I would agree with you, Wick. I think in this election, probably more than most, given just the circumstances we're working with. I've seen more attacks on Tim on Twitter than I have seen on Kamala, right? Today, it's been absolutely like one-sided. And I suspect that's going to actually keep going because I think with Tim, there's more you can attack because he was actually the governor of a state. and was behind a lot more policy. And Kamala hasn't even come out with a fucking campaign platform yet. And here we are, like less than 3 months from the election. There is something to attack when it comes to Walz, right? You can attack what he did as a governor. You can attack the BLM stuff. You can attack the actual bills that he signed. And it gives the Republicans some, I guess, talking points as to what they think or what they're arguing the Democrats will do if they get into power. This might change a little bit when Kamala announces her platform, but until then, I think that Tim's going to be, really the one that's going to be criticized. In terms of J.D. Vance, I think that the reason why J.D. Vance potentially matters more and why he's being, looked at and criticized more is because Trump's old. And we all saw what happened with Biden. I don't necessarily think just being old should disqualify you, but there is this reality of human mortality where if you get old, you might die. And it's very possible that, at least it's a higher likelihood that Trump does die in office just because of that age than George W. Bush. And, we might have a J.D. Vance.
My problem with Vance is twofold, right? Well, one, I don't like his, but this you can kind of toss aside because this is obvious. I don't like his policies. I think that they're too Trumpish for me. But I think the more important and salient issue, actually, for the electorate as a whole is I don't trust the man. I don't trust him. I think he betrayed his constituency. I think Ohio agrees with me. He has low approval ratings everywhere, but in Ohio, he has the worst approval ratings of all over the nation. He has worse approval ratings in Ohio, the state that he is from, than he does in California, than he does in New York.
I don't know that you can say that, Rick, whenever
it's true. The numbers. I can say this because we have the numbers in front of us. But we know where he is. Hold on.
Let me give you an exact
Hold on. We know where he is weakest. We know where people dislike him the most, and the people who know him the best dislike him the most. And I think that's telling. So I think Lactoid's exactly right when he says it's a salient issue because of the age of Trump on the ticket, and because there is a higher likelihood than normal that he will be called upon to actually sit in the presidential seat. And I think that Vance is uniquely distrustworthy, uniquely unqualified, and frankly, just kind of a hypocrite.